Welcome in, everybody. Today is December the 2nd, 2019. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thank you for joining me today, and welcome into all the folks already in the chat, eager and ready for us to start today's stream. I feel like I got the lighting a lot better today on the camera because it's pretty dark in here. I'm getting a late start, and I'm learning how to use this camera, so watch out. And made a slight adjustment to the audio. Hopefully that's a little bit better. And hello to all my friends in blue here joining us in the chat. Vern Mahorny, Hale, Chester Hughes, Nick Poverman. Winston Liu contributed $2 Canadian. Thank you, Winston. Hello to Craig Lilly, Francois Guibault, Philip Musto, Eddie Casanova, Jay Fenaris, Jesse Kirk. Hey, Jesse, welcome in. Patrick Manny, Rare Apple 3. Richard Prescott, Danny Hall, Miles Van de Sand, Oystein, welcome in. Art Vandelay. And to all my friends not blue yet, welcome in. We're going to do some live computer repair, diagnostics and repair. This is all unedited and unscripted, keeping it real, because I think the world has a little too much Instagram and fakeness. So I just like to keep everything as authentic and genuine as possible. Since I'm trying to teach, I want to give you an idea of some of the obstacles you can encounter and the time involved before or if you decide to take on tasks similar to this. And Chester Hughes just contributed $2. Hey, thank you to Chester. Christopher Turner says hello. James Zender and Michael Pentek say hello. Michael Arios, Bladder Jockey, Wayne Lawrence, Ben DeCure, John Craig, John for PC, welcome in, welcome in. John Fazani says hello. Patrick Rousseau says hello from New York. Okay, so I'll tell you the story behind this. What is this? This isn't as bad as it looks. Or rather, this isn't as old as it looks. Customer or viewer contacted me. Josh McCloy just contributed $6.99. Thanks, Josh. Thank you for supporting the channel. It's support from contributions from viewers like you that make these videos possible and keep me from getting any sponsors, right? So that way you know everything has no agenda to it. I'm not shilling any products I don't actually use and believe in. But getting back to this, so a viewer contacted me and said that they built a couple of computers and never had a problem, and they built them for friends and things like that. And they built this one and were never able to get it to excuse me. They were never able to get it to work. And they supposedly swapped out everything. They swapped out the power supply, they swapped out the RAM, they swapped out the motherboard, they swapped out the storage, and they can't even get Windows 10 to install on it. The one thing they didn't swap was the CPU. I very rarely ever see a bad CPU, although it's possible. And it's unlikely they bent any pins on the motherboard because they've used two different motherboards. They've used two different sets of RAM. They've used two different power supplies. They've used two different storage devices and two different sources for Windows 10 media installation. They have a DVD and they made a USB, which I asked them to do because they were running off DVD. And it's a no-go. The Windows 10 will not install. The only part they haven't changed is the CPU. So you know what I know. This is all the information I was able to extract from the customer. The customer then, what happened was the customer had this in an old server case. It's like this big. It's going to cost a lot of money to ship. So I said, look, keep your video card. We don't need that. If you have another case to put it in, find a smaller case so it won't cost as much to ship this thing to me. And we'll get it fixed. And when you get it back, you can move it into a different case if you want to. So he's got some old stuff laying around, and he's sort of combining old and new. This is always a bad idea, by the way. Trying to save money, what do I need to buy a new case? I'll just use my old case. Results in all sort of weird obstacles, like, for example, wanting to ship it. He might have found that case. I don't know where he got it, but maybe somebody gave it away or it was at a swap meet or something because it's big and it's heavy and nobody wants it. For a cheap case, free case, I'll take it, right? But that ends up costing you more money in the long run. he sent me some videos of what the machine was doing, and it's loud and it's huge. So it's very impractical, but to each his own. Ultimately, it doesn't impact whether the system will work or not, but it does complicate things that you just don't expect to happen, like how am I going to get the system to carry now when the case is good, it's going to be impossible to find a box for it, and the case alone will cost over $100. So he found a spare old case laying around and moved the components into it. And I told him, keep your DVD drive, keep your video card, because that's obviously has nothing to do with this problem, and it's going to add weight to the shipping, and it's a potential for one more thing to break. So only send me what we need in this particular case. Now, what do you guys think the problem is? Well, the first thing I need to do is verify that I'm having the same problem the customer's having. Now, this just arrived today via FedEx. All I've done is unboxed it. I haven't looked at it. I haven't opened it. You're seeing everything fresh and new, just like I am. That's why my videos are a little different than other YouTube videos without all the planning and prep and polish. This is real world life happening right now, live. Thank you for joining me. So I guess the first thing I want to do is take the side panel off, which looks like I don't even need a screwdriver for that. And in here should be much more modern components than you would think would be in a case this old. And we'll take a look at what's in here. He told me the specs, but I can't remember. I talk to a lot of people every day. We're not worried about any cable management in this. As I mentioned, this is just thrown into this box temporarily for repair. So we got an Intel system. Looks like we got some Trident RGB RAM. And why is that all the way over there? What's going on with that? Let me just get this out of the way. Let's see if I can zoom me in and we can take a look at these parts. Well, I'll do my best. So you see he's got a 970 Evo solid state M.2 drive there. He's also got this motherboard, which is, let's see, what does that say? What board are we dealing with here? Need to get a flashlight out so I can see it. Got to be a make and model on here somewhere. This is an ASRock. That's all I know, ASRock. Okay. Okay. Shine some light in there. You guys might be able to see it a little better than I can. He's got this old style case fan hooked up to a Molex connector, and the reason you don't want to do that is that rear fan is going to run at 100% all the time. It'll never adjust. It's just on full blast. It's getting constant power with no variation. It's just another downside to an older case. Of course, you can change a fan and put a 3-pin or 4-pin fan on it, but by the time you end up spending all the money to make this case viable, or an older case viable, you might as well just buy a new case that's, not only that, but nothing is beige anymore, whatever this color is. So I think I don't want to work on it in this case. You can see how much I'm already struggling with these cables getting in the way. So I think the first thing I want to do before I do anything else is just get this out of here. I want to take all these front connectors off from down here. And I'm going to leave the power supply in here for now, and I'll use my own power supply for testing. And we'll just take this board out and we'll set it down on the Lazy Susan directly and we'll see how that works. Stephen Spencer just contributed 20 Canadian dollars. Hey, thank you for your contribution, Stephen. Thanks for being a part of the community. Make sure Stephen's a moderator in here. Give me just a second. We got 525 people watching live right now, and while I'm messing about here, if you want to give a shout out of where you're watching me from, where in the world are you? It's always fascinating to see where my videos are reaching around the world as we're broadcasting live here. Before I forget, among the amazing community I have are a few standout members. Folks like Stephen Bokar, Peter Laycock, Cullen Hilton, Douglas Betts, Doug Betts, Sarah Sharpling. There's so many people, John Craig, the list goes on and on and on. But there's one that comes to mind today because he sent me, I didn't expect this, he sent me an Amazon gift card. And that's from Tony Wallow, sent a $100 Amazon gift card. And I just used that to buy a couple of those super fast flash drives and a 256 gig U3 rated speed SDXC card for the camera that I'm filming this on. So thank you so much, Tony. Again, all the contributions that go to the channel go towards the channel. It goes into equipment, it goes into tools, I just had to buy a whole bunch of new cables. So anyway, I really appreciate Tony's continued support and contributions to the channel. And of course, along with everybody else who contributes during the live stream. I see Cullen Hilton's in there today. Hey, Cullen. Oh, and there's Tony. All right, right on. So Tony, thank you so much. That was really nice. I didn't expect that. And your timing was perfect because that SDXC card was on sale for $60. And so were the flash drives. The 64 gig SanDisk Extreme Pro USB flash drives are on sale for $17.99. Some good deals out there. All right, so what I want to do right now is pull the board out so we can work on it outside of this case. I was feeling a little antsy today, so my battery meter was down one light and I recharged it. It took, I think, 8 minutes. This thing lasts me like 6 months, but I just felt like charging it today. It is a bit dark in here, and I apologize for that. It's a little downside of not having a studio with proper lighting when I film this late. Normally I'm relying on the sunlight to come in through the windows to solve that problem for me. Now, if this computer it was built this way to be used this way, I'd be upset because there's a number of screws missing. But I'm glad there are a number of screws missing because the customer's intent is not to leave it in this case, but rather just to get the computer to me as cheaply as possible. And really all I needed was everything on the board, which is the heatsink, RAM, M.2 drive, the board itself, and its power supply. That's really all I needed. And there's a screw that fell in there. Hold on. Where is it? I hear it rolling around. Come on, where are you? There it is. All right. And we'll just take this and move it over here for now. Out of sight, out of mind. And I'll just set the board right there. And then all these screws, we'll just move these. A lot of different ways, a lot of clever things you can do. An old egg crate, old egg carton, you can put these in there. Or if you have a magnetic tray, which I've got around here somewhere, I don't like to use it because it makes it difficult to get the screws out, right? You got to kind of pull on them to get them to get the magnet to release. So instead, I think I've got a glass up here I can use. Yeah, we'll use this. Here we go. Cheers. I'm going to need a power supply. I could use this one, but I'd have to remove 4 screws, God forbid. So I'll just grab one from back here. And besides that, I know my power supply works, and it'll take out one more item out of the equation of suspects. So here we go with the power supply. This is just a standard EVGA 500 watt bronze. Lots of great sales on power supplies today, by the way. In fact, many of the sales are going on through December. It's not like it's today only. It's a really good time to buy a power supply. The good thing about buying power supplies is they don't depreciate like other computer components. So if you were like planning a build and you just want to get your power supply out of the way, that's a great way to buy something a little early with no buyer's remorse, other than your warranty starts ticking away. But if you buy one with a 7 or 10 year warranty, who cares, right? All right, put that on there. A couple of contributions came in. Let me give some credit to those folks who just did that. Let's see, what have I missed? John Craig contributed £5. He says, have some Linctus on me. I don't know what that is. Stephen Spencer contributed 20 Canadian dollars. Boomhauer 100 contributed $5 and said, I have Google opinion rewards that are expiring. I'd rather you get them. I know you like original Coke. If you had to drink a flavored one, which? None of them. I don't like any of the flavored ones. Jonathan Mayberry's contributed £20. He says, here's a bit more to help you out, Kerry. Hey, thank you, Jonathan. Again, you guys make this happen. So I appreciate that. And Marx Brothers 715 has contributed $14.99. He says, hey, Kerry, all your videos are awesome. I learned great information. Hey, thank you, Marx Brothers. Yeah, so this Lazy Susan and all the keyboards and screwdriver, all that's available in my Amazon store. I don't think I left a link to that in the chat, not the chat, in the video notes. So I'll go back and I will add that link. Some people were asking about the live stream where I built that motherboard back there, back in the corner. That's in the process of being edited down to take out all the chit chat and just focus on the build. Once that's done, that video will be back up. I ended up getting into a bit of a debate with one of the viewers. This is interactive, right? This isn't television. The idea is we can talk to each other. And sometimes I allow myself to get the better of me. And when I do that, sometimes I'm embarrassed by myself, and I don't want to show that video to other people who missed, the people who saw it live was enough. So I'm going to cut out all that chit chat and just keep it to business on that particular video. And hopefully our dialogue together will be friendly and supportive. And for people that are trying to draw attention to themselves, I'll have to learn to stop taking that bait. Evolution, working on it. The vast majority of you are super fantastic, and I need to focus on the vast majority of you that are the super fantastic and stop letting people bait me and giving them the attention because they don't deserve it. Newcomer 8771 just contributed $5. Hey, thank you for that. Thank you very much. Chris wants to know what my opinion is on what they call sleeper PC builds. I don't really have an opinion on it. You make the computer that's right for you. And if you're happy, I'm happy. I don't care what other people think. All right, so I need to put the EPS power connector on. That's that CPU power connector up here in the corner. And we'll go right up here with that. Oh, I guess I'm going to need a power switch. Let me go grab my power switch. Here we go. So what I like to do when I have an old case is strip the switches and LEDs off of it and throw the rest of it away. So I can just have a power switch like this and then just plug that on, especially during a diagnostic where I've got the machine out of or motherboard and parts out of the case. I need a way to flip it on and off, and using a screwdriver, it's just sloppy. It's just sloppy. So let me do a couple things. One, I've got to get a flashlight and some glasses to read this board. It's still a little dark in here. and every day I'm a little older. It's not helping my vision. I used to not need these for the first 48 years of my life. Let's see, power switch is right there. Okay. Wow, that is, the way this M.2 drive in here is really bugging me. It's very, very loose. I need to take a look at what's going on with that before we do anything else. That should be in there firmly. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be like welded to the board, but it shouldn't be wobbly at all. It should not have any movement. So something's not right with this. Let me just take a quick look here. So here's the, it's a 250 gig 970 Evo. And let me reseat it. I always recommend you use a magnetized screwdriver when you work with computers. Back in the 80s and the 70s, they didn't want you to do that. But technology has evolved quite a bit since then, and to not use one is a bit foolish in my opinion. Yeah, that just doesn't seat right in there. There's something, I don't know if the standoff is wrong or the screw is wrong, but I don't like that one bit. I don't like that wobbly nature to that. There should be a lip on the standoff that sort of keeps the round cutout in the M.2 drive. It should have like a slight metal riser up on that standoff to keep that from moving, and then when the screw goes down, it just holds it there. So that's really bothering me. I may end up moving it down to this lower position just to see what happens. But first we have to replicate the customer's problem, which they say they can't get Windows 10 installed. So we're on the way to do that right now. I guess I better keep my glasses handy. I think I'm going to be needing them today. And I might need the flashlight, so we'll keep that out. And I need to get the power supply power, which I have right here. Switch is in the off position on the power supply. I always ask customers to pull all their USB devices out. It's very easy to forget to send something like this back to the customer. This is clearly a Logitech keyboard or a mouse or both, wireless dongle. So now I have to make an effort to remember that that customer gets that back. I also have to make an effort to remember to take mine before I ship it, or I can't use my keyboard and mouse. So I keep my dongle for the mouse. It goes right in that little holder. It's magnetic. Even there's so much magnetic use now in computers that the fear of using magnets around computers is unjustifiable today. So let's get the keyboard and mouse plugged in. I need to get some video on here. I'm going to use your guys' as monitor for this, okay? So we're going to grab this. We're just going to use onboard video because, like I said, he does have a graphics card he's using, but it has nothing to do with this problem. So if we can solve this problem with onboard video, then I have no doubt when he puts his discrete graphics card in there, he won't have any problems. Okay, I think I'm all organized now. We're ready to fire it up. And I think the first thing I want to do is just try to install Windows 10 on it and see what happens. I think that's the very first step. Boomhauer 100 contributed $2. He said, did you play DOS or other early games? If so, which? Oh, some of the earliest games I played was a game called Android NIM on the TRS-80 Model I. And then when I would hang out at Radio Shack and play with their computers, I remember being very involved in Zork. Zork is a text-based adventure game. So those were my PC games. And then in the arcade, I would play Galaxian and Galaga and Gorf and Spy Hunter and Pole Position and Tron and 1942 and Joust. Lots of. For me, video games meant you went to a building with a lot of teenagers and you hung out there for hours dumping quarters in machines. So that was video games for me. PC games, they just didn't have the graphics or the sound at that time to compare with the arcade. Samuel Ramos has contributed $9.99. He said, here's a little something to help you out with the channel carry. Also, I think you're super fantastic as well. That's very kind of you, Samuel. Thank you so much, and thanks for supporting the channel. And Tony Wallow contributed $2 and says, happy holidays. Hey, thank you, Tony. Is that X299 system still running for you? Yeah, I used to hang out at Radio Shack after school. I didn't really have any friends, so as soon as I would get home from school, I'd get on my bike. I would bike a mile to the mall, and I would go to Radio Shack, and I would learn basic programming by typing in programs out of magazines. I would play Zork, Zork 2, Zork 3, Android, NIM. Those were a couple that I remember. There's probably a few I don't remember. I spent a lot of time on the original Zork. And there was no cheat codes or internet to look anything up. There were bulletin board systems, and you could find it if you looked hard enough, but I really enjoyed the challenge of doing it myself. And it took months to figure it out. It's good times. Fred Adams has contributed $10. He says, happy holidays. Hey, thank you, Fred. Fred's a moderator here in the channel. Randall Hill says he did the same thing. Lots of quarters and tokens. David Kelly Parent has contributed $5 Canadian. Hey, thank you, David. Thanks for supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. Having a good day today. We have 785 people watching us live from around the world, and every one of us is kind and thoughtful and supportive. That's a big number of supportive people. Madi joins us. Hey, Madi's just contributed $10. Thank you for your contribution, Madi. All right, so let's get this fired up and let's get some work done. So looking at what we've got right now, we've got the keyboard and mouse plugged in. Let me make sure they're turned on. Yes. I got to flip the switch on the power supply to on, and I'm going to flip the video input over to the motherboard right here, and then maybe I can just put myself in a corner. Let's see. There we go. All right, so the no signal that you're seeing means that my video capture card is not receiving a video signal on that input, and that's because I haven't turned this on yet. There's no signal. So that's what we're supposed to see right now. Benjamin Stroud has contributed $5. He says, Jedi Master Carey, thank you for your teachings. An elegant weapon for a simpler time. All right. Sorry, I nerded out there for a minute. RGB lighting has come on here on the board. I don't know how well you guys can see that. I have to grab the right mouse to do this. Okay, let's let me grab my Windows 10 media right here, and we'll just put that into any USB blue slot, so we have the performance. That's a USB 3 flash drive and a USB 3 port, or 3.1, 3 point whatever. And let's hit the button. Fan is turning, and you guys should get some video. We should all get video, as I use your monitor for this. I don't have a monitor here, so I got to use yours. And hopefully we'll get some video out of it here eventually. The RAM is lit up. The Trident RGB RAM is glowing. And it's remaining with no signal for an awfully long time. Randy Hopkins just contributed $5 and says, happy holidays. Hey, happy holidays to you, Randy. Thank you. I should have gotten a video signal by now, so I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to flip the switch off on the power supply. I'm going to remove the flash drive. I've seen some motherboards that don't boot up right with USB devices plugged in that for some reason have an incompatibility. So without any USB devices plugged in, we'll flip it back on, the switch on the power supply that is, hit this switch. This is going to light up again. RAM has not lit up yet. There it goes. RAM just lit up. And you'll see we've got some booting here. So let me turn that off. I don't know which of these USB devices is causing us grief. So we'll just try this one more time. I'll use a different USB port for this. Maybe I didn't have it in all the way too. That's possible. Turn it back on. Let's make sure we get back to a boot screen. Good, good. Okay. So I don't need to see any more than that. Turn that off. Let me put the flash drive back in for Windows 10. We'll put it over here this time. Make sure it's fully in. Flip the switch. Turn it on. Okay, fan is turning. RAM just lit up. That sort of indicates that it's initialized or it's getting power. It seems like it doesn't want to play with that flash drive, doesn't it? Interesting. It doesn't like my SanDisk Extreme Pro. Well, don't give up on it yet. We're going to try a couple different USB ports. That's very interesting. It absolutely does not want to boot with that flash drive plugged into it. And that's usually an indication of something incompatible on the board. Maybe there's a BIOS update or something that addresses it. We know the USB port works. And if it was a no-name brand USB flash drive, I'd say, well, it's probably just because it's a cheap flash drive. But these are expensive SanDisk SSDs, not SSDs, flash drives. I've got my Acronis SanDisk Extreme. This is a 256 gig flash drive. It's about a $75 flash drive. Let's see if it'll boot from that one, or if it doesn't want to do it at all. Interesting. So we know it's not unique to a specific flash drive. It just doesn't like any of these SanDisk flash drives. So I'm going to go to a real cheap flash drive here. Just for grins and giggles, I'm going to load Memtest 86. And this is our old school flash drive from a company called Team, just an old 2 gig flash drive. Let's see if it'll boot to that. So normally I would say this is an indication of perhaps a bad motherboard when I see stuff like this, but it also could be a BIOS update that's lacking. Could also be an incompatibility with the RAM if the RAM's just a little off on its timing. But that is not booting to anything USB. So what I'm going to do, I know that's board related. I don't know if it's the motherboard itself or something plugged into the board, but there's definitely something not right with something plugged into this board. I think what I want to try and do is reset the BIOS on this, and let's see if we can get any better reaction from this thing with a reset BIOS. Let me get you guys full screen again here. Here we go. Bill Thomas just contributed $10. Hey, thank you, Bill. He says, great teaching techniques. Enjoy. One day I'll put one together. Have a Coke. What are you waiting for, Bill? You got to do it, man. You got to put one together. And you'll never be able to just put one together. Once you put one together, you're going to want to put another one together. I see Rich Robbins joins us in the chat. Rich has been on the channel as a guest. I understand it's your birthday today, Rich. Happy birthday to Rich Robbins. Come on, tell Rich Robbins happy birthday in the chat. Let him know he's loved, guys. All right, somewhere on this board there is a jumper to clear the BIOS, and I have to find it. I've never seen this motherboard before, so it's not like I'm familiar with the location and options of this particular board. So bear with me for a second as I figure it out. You know what, I'll just pop the battery. How about I just take the battery out? Let's just do it that way. We'll go brute force on it. Unplug this. I want to make sure all the power gets drained from the board, so the BIOS will be completely reset. There we go. Yeah, I'm really disturbed by that looseness of that M.2 drive. It's really bugging me. Still looking on here for a clear BIOS or a clear CMOS jumper. It's usually around where the battery is. Usually, but not always. No. In the worst case scenario, you can actually look at the directions. You know, we could look up the make and model of the board on Google, the model number, and go to ASRock's website. It's a little fascinating to me that I don't see a model on this. It just says ASRock, but it doesn't give me a model number. But I guess I can get into the BIOS and find it. But usually it's printed right across the surface of the board. At least with Gigabyte and Asus. I can't say for ASRock because I've only seen a handful of ASRock boards, and I'm not familiar with the way they do things. But we've had this battery out long enough that should have reset the BIOS. BIOS or CMOS. When you hear somebody say one or the other, it pretty much, for all intents and purposes, unless you're an engineer, pretty much means the same thing. We're referring to the input-output system on the motherboard that allows it to identify what your RAM is and what your hard drive is and all that stuff. BIOS, Basic Input-Output System, something like that. All right, let's see what happens when we flip it on now. And again, you can see the RAM light up and everything. I can get you zoomed in here. So we'll turn it on. You see the fan starts to spin. These lights will come on the RAM in just a moment. There they go. And then we can flip over to input 2. See if we're getting anything. So far, nothing. I know that my power supply is a good power supply, and I know that this machine can boot because it just recently came up with some text prior. So what I want to do next is I'm going to turn this back off, and I'm going to cut the power to the power supply here. And I'm going to take this M.2 drive out because it really bothers me the way it's sitting in there. At this point now, I just want to get the motherboard to fire up and get me into the BIOS. I'll be happy if I can do that. Baby steps, you know. So we're going to take this M.2 drive out. Take the drive out and set it down here. And the little screw, don't want to lose that little tiny screw. Put that right there. Let's flip the switch on again. Hit the button. Let's fire it up. That's interesting. So I will hit Control-Alt-Delete on the keyboard, and I'm going to try and go into the BIOS so I can see a make and model on this board. So hopefully, if I keep hitting Delete, this thing will try and boot back up again. Merlestic says there's a clear MOS1 jumper at the bottom. Yeah, there's a lot at the bottom, Merle. So I'm not getting any video again. So it seems very iffy. So the next thing I want to do, once again, we'll take you back to the main camera. And I'm going to cut power to this. And I'm going to take out one of these RAM modules. So this is the Trident G-Skill RAM that he's got, 3200 speed, RGB. So we're going to just leave that out for right now, and then try and fire the machine back up again. So back to the power supply, flip that on. You notice I don't work on the motherboard just because it's off. The machine is off, but you see the light still light up. That's because there's still power going through it. You've got to cut power either by pulling the cable or hitting the switch on the power supply if you want to work safely, unless you got a lot of money and you don't mind buying new parts all the time. All right, let's fire this up again. Back over to video input. Let's see if we can get in here. This is not helping. Okay, so you can understand the customer's frustration at this point, right? Now what I want to do is turn this off. I'm going to take the other memory module out. And I'm going to put this one back in. I'm going to move it. Well, no, you know what? I'll just keep it in this slot right here. That's fine. Make sure I put it in the right direction. Switch on, power up. Oops, got this in the way of the fan. Come on, there it goes. All right, we're powering up now. See if we can get some video out of this thing. Nothing. Okay, so again, I'm going to switch this off. And in the chat, they're recommending I check the battery to see if it's any good. So I have a little battery meter, and we can test it. I mean, this should all be brand new, but that doesn't mean everything brand new always works. Sometimes things can be brand new and be defective, even a battery. So let's check it. It's real easy. I've got a little, I call my cheapo Chinese battery tester that I bought on eBay for $3. But it's real simplistic, and it gets the job done, and that's what I like. So that's it right here. And let's see what this bad boy comes up to. It's good. So it's not our battery. We can definitely put the battery back in. We know that's not the problem. Good suggestion. Always check everything, especially when nothing makes any sense. Trust me, whatever this problem is, it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense to you. It totally makes sense to the computer. The computer is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, or what it's being told to do, and it's just being told to do something wrong, and we're trying to find where that is and correct it. I'd like to know what CPU this is, so I think it's time we dig a little deeper. So I'm going to go ahead and take the CPU out, and to do that, there's these little plastic towers on each corner of the CPU. We give those a turn in the direction of the arrow, and that's how you tell it, I want to take this off. I'm going to get this RAM out of my way because it's kind of blocking my access. We can put that back in a minute. And you can put a straight edge screwdriver in there if you have to help with that. I've seen people put CPUs in when they're building a computer, and they think they're supposed to turn these little towers in the direction of the arrow to install. No, no, no. The way these CPUs come out of the box, they're ready to be installed. So what they end up doing is the CPU heatsink won't lock down because they've twisted those towers. And then they're having cooling issues. Okay, so let's just move this fan. I know you can't see anything. Give me just a second, guys. This cabling is just all over my Here, you know what? Let me just pull a fan off. Let's just take it off. It needs to be this needs to be corrected. These little power cables can get into the blades of the fan and then stop your fan from spinning. So it's important that we use these little connectors and things that are built into the side of the fan shroud. And of course, if that's not enough, we get a nylon zip tie and tie it up. A mesothermal compound down there. Let's see what CPU we got in here. I need to get some, you know, I'll just use a paper towel. We're going to reapply this stuff here in a minute. So first I'm going to start with wiping down the CPU. And then I'm going to wipe off the heatsink. Now before I reapply, I'm going to grab some rubbing alcohol and really clean it, but for now this will get the bulk of that nastiness off of there. That stuff gets on your hands, it's really hard to wash off. So what CPU do we have? Let's take it out and take a look at what's going on here. Appears to be an Intel Core i5 8400. And let's take a look at the condition of the pins on the socket. Make sure that they look okay. They look perfect. All right. Put the CPU back in. And are we in the right RAM sockets? That's another question. Customer sent it to me that way. I don't know. Sometimes with some motherboards, you've got to have the RAM in certain sockets. Yeah, he's got it in A1 and B1. So their ASRock is labeling like ASUS does with that, which really upsets me. I really don't like that labeling system. It should be A1 and A2, B1 and B2. But in this, with ASRock and ASUS, they're the only motherboard manufacturers that flip it and say A1 and B1. I'm going to plug the heatsink in, but I'm going to leave it off the CPU. The CPU will not overheat. We're only turning the system on for a short time. I do need to plug the CPU fan in though, or the motherboard may not start. So let me take another look at the fan headers on this board. Let's see where that says. I've got a quick tips video that shows me running Prime 95 on an i3 CPU for 15 minutes without a fan. People obsess about cooling like it's so important. Now, granted, that CPU was throttling, but it wasn't catching fire, it didn't cause any damage. And if we reduce the life of the CPU from 100 years down to 20 years, it's still going to outlive its usefulness. What I'm looking for is to make sure I'm plugging into the CPU fan header. This has a chassis fan header and a CPU fan 2, and then it says, boy, the labeling on this ASRock board is severely lacking. A lot of times the CPU fan will have a different color on the connector, but not here. They didn't do that. So they all look alike, and then there's no labeling I can find that says CPU fan. which means I'd have to pull up the documentation. Oh, I can see the motherboard make now. Z390 Phantom Gaming SLI AC. So it's a Z390 Phantom Gaming SLI AC. There it is. So I guess they wrote the make and model of the motherboard underneath where the M.2 drive goes. So if you plug an M.2 drive in, you can't read the make and model of your motherboard anymore. It's not very well thought out. You know, Gigabyte and Asus don't do that. Just saying. You get accustomed to the certain way manufacturers do things, and when you go to a different manufacturer, it's a little awkward, less optimized, less efficient from what I'm accustomed to. So I'm just going to leave that upside down. Yeah, we'll turn it back on and see what it does. Now I got to flip the switch on the power supply back on. And let's go to input 2. Yeah, it's not booting. So, I want to remind everybody that the DVR mode feature on this live video is running and active. So if you want to rewind, if you want to watch something that I've just done or I did way back at the beginning of the video, you just use that little scroll button underneath this video and you can rewind this live video. You know, there's no reason for you to ask me to repeat myself. You have the ability. The i5-8400 CPU should be compatible with the Z390. It's an 8th gen chip for a 9th gen motherboard, but it should be fine. So we still could potentially have an issue with incompatible RAM. We could have a bad CPU. Very unlikely to have a bad CPU, but it is possible. I asked the customer where they sourced the CPU. If the customer had sourced it off eBay or bought it off Craigslist, I'd likely think it was the CPU. But no, he bought it from an online retailer like Newegg, Amazon, whatever. So it's just highly unlikely to be bad. Could be, which is highly unlikely. I would like to try a different CPU. I just don't know if I have one I can try. Let's see what I've got laying around here we can use. It doesn't have to be the same CPU. Any socket 1151 Intel chip will do the job. What do I have? Do I have a socket 1151 hanging around? I got solid state drives. I know I've got a couple of CPUs coming in. They're not typically parts I use as hot spares, so I would have to borrow one, kind of steal one from another system momentarily. Let me just look around a little bit and see what I've got. Rats. It's not like I would have 8th gen chips laying around in a pile. Like if I had a chip that recent, I would be using it. It'll be in a build. So the question is, do I have any upcoming builds with a CPU I can kind of borrow here for a minute? One of the advantages of taking your computer to a repair shop is that they will have spare tools like this, spare parts to swap out, versus you going to the store and having to buy a whole nother CPU, which oftentimes cannot be returned. And so if you're sitting there buying parts, swapping them out until you find the bad part, you may end up building a whole nother computer before you're done. It can be very expensive. Suddenly the repair shop seems a lot cheaper. Oh gosh, I got my i9 CPU. I really don't want to use that. What can I do? What can I do? Do I have any spare RAM I can use? I have the exact same RAM. That's probably not going to be good. There were some good prices on RAM today at Newegg, and I ended up ordering some, but it probably won't be here for a couple days. Boy, I'm just really low on everything. I think I've got a Core i5 in my office computer. I could take it apart and take it out. Let me see what I've missed in the chat while I've been wandering. Got 1,090 people watching us. Hey, welcome in, everybody. i386 says, what about a bad CPU socket? No, I just inspected it. It looks good. The customer said they used 2 different motherboards, 2 different sets of RAM, 2 different power supplies. The only thing they didn't swap out was the CPU. It could very well be a CPU issue, but if it is, well, we'll have to just mark this video as special because it's unlikely you'll see another video showing a bad CPU for a very long time. But I need another CPU. James Hook says the minimum i5 this motherboard will run is the i5-8400. People are asking me to do things I've already done on video, so if you're just joining us, you can always rewind this video to see what you've missed. They want me to take the CPU out of the motherboard behind me. I hate the idea of taking that apart. See, the board looks bent. Circuit boards can bend. It really doesn't matter if they're slightly warped. It has no impact whatsoever on the board. Again, this isn't electronics from the 70s and 80s anymore. There's so much outdated information on the internet. And you guys, many of you can't seemingly tell the difference between current information and past information. And it happens all the time. I'll have people watching my videos that I made 6 years ago, and they want to ask me, you know, how do I enter this contest? I'm like, what contest are you in? The one in the video. I go, what date was that video made? 2013? I'm like, that contest ended a long time ago, man. Or the Acronis discount. How come my Acronis discount code isn't working? I'm like, when was that video made? October. And when did the Acronis discount say it was going to end? The end of October. And what month are we in now? And this is what happens with information online, especially when it comes to electronics repair. It's changed very much over the last 30, 40 years. So a lot of the information you guys are reading is old, obsolete information. That still applies if you're working on old, obsolete equipment. But again, using old knowledge on new equipment or new knowledge on old equipment, the world isn't that simple. We adapt and we change to accommodate the environment and the equipment that we're working on. So let's take a look here. David Kelly Parent has contributed again, 10 Canadian dollars. Hey, thank you. Thank you for your continued support, David. What if I try the CPU and a different motherboard? Oh, well, yeah, that's an idea. I do have a spare motherboard, as a matter of fact. I do. See? That's the kind of thinking I need right there. Just reverse it the other way around. Instead of putting a different CPU on the board, put that CPU into a different board. Well done. Well done. You know what, I guess I can use this board over here, because I know this board boots and everything's good with it. We'll take the CPU out of it. This is the H370 HD3. I ended up buying 2 more of these because they were on sale for 99 bucks a piece. Now they're back up to $120, $130. All right, I got to pull this heat sink off of here. Oh, I can't take the CPU out without taking off these brackets. Or at least one side. Set that right there. Give me this one. Put it right in there. And I think I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to borrow this fan and plug it in. We don't need to actually have it on the CPU unless we really want to work the system. For my demonstration showing that you can actually run an Intel CPU or an AMD CPU, a modern one, without a cooling fan at all. It'll throttle itself down. It won't burn itself out. It's not efficient, but it'll work. But for our power on test, we can do this safely. I'm just not going to leave the machine on very long. So we're going to just steal the power supply here while we're at it. Now I do have that CPU socket exposed on the other board. It's very important that we are very aware of that so as not to make any contact with it whatsoever. It's very, very delicate. So you've got to be extreme caution if you are going to replicate what you see me do in these videos. As somebody who's been doing this for nearly 30 years, a lot of it's very automatic to me, and it may not be automatic to you. So be aware of the responsibilities of your actions. Yeah, this board flexes a lot. There's a lot of flex in it. It's just the way they make it. I don't think there's anything harmful about it, but it just feels a little cheap. And I need my power switch. There we go. And then we got to plug video into it, which I have down here. Okay. Okay. That should be all we need. I want to see this fan spin so I know when to verify when the machine is turned on. Make sure it's not going to go anywhere. That's such a horrible design. I got to put something on these cables. I'll just leave the fan right there. I can watch it that way. Flip the switch on the power supply, and let's turn this on and see what happens. Here we go. Fan is turning. And we are getting no signal from the board whatsoever. Oh, hold on. Fan just slowed down. Fan is speeding up. Okay. Well, I am convinced we have a bad CPU here, folks. Or there's something about the CPU that's not compatible with a Z390 motherboard. This board has the latest BIOS on it. This is the board I just put together the other day on the live video, which I don't have available yet. As I already mentioned, it's going to go through some editing, but you'll see it soon. And just to verify, we'll put it all back the way it was and make sure it still works. So we'll take this CPU out. A little difficult to work with that power cable in my way. So let's take this off for right now. And let me put this bracket back. Oh, wait a minute, I can take CPU out. CPU is out. Put this CPU back in. Bring that back down. Put the bracket back on. Now, as long as we're not altering the thermal compound at all, which we are not, we don't have to wipe it and reapply it in this scenario, because it's all going to line right back up. The heatsink's going back on the same direction, the CPU's going back on the same direction. Some people really obsess over that. And I lost a screw. There it is. Very good. Running out of places to put stuff. All right, we'll put the fan back on. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'll be right back. Speak of the devil, some of those parts just came in for that build. All right, so I think we've got a bad CPU here. Very unusual. I've never actually had to RMA a CPU before. Usually when I got a bad CPU back in the day, on the rare occasion, I used to buy my parts locally. This was before the days of ordering stuff online. And because I built so many computers, they just took care of me. They knew I wasn't, they knew who I was, the people I bought from. And so they would just give me a different one. So I've never had to mail one back. But yeah, this is a bad CPU. So going back to putting this heatsink back on, I want to just start one side here. Let's make sure we get that started. Come over and start the other side. This doesn't feel right. It's not going in right. Let me make sure that if something is requiring a lot of force, you're doing it wrong. So let me reseat this again. I'll try this one more time. Start that side, and then this side. That side's going in good. This side seems to, it's only going in partially and then it's stopping. Something's not right. And I don't know what it is, but I don't want to ruin this. This is a brand new system. And of course, when you're working on your own stuff, you could potentially damage something through part swapping. You know, I want to make sure I put this back on the right direction, make sure that looks okay. Just verify everything's good there. Try this again. It's almost like it got a little cross-threaded somehow. It just doesn't want to go any further than that. I don't know why. So I want to check the underside of it, which means I need to take this bracket back off and just take a quick inspection of it. I want to make sure nothing's lying underneath of the bracket that could interfere with that screw. Whoa. There's that side. Okay. Try this one more time. Huh. It's very strange. This side's going in just fine, and this side just does not want to. Oh, it's going now. Just must have been on a weird angle. So I'm going to try and just tighten these down evenly so both sides are coming down on both sides of the CPU together. If one side isn't going to be tightened down before the other side, because I can leave a little type of a warp. And you know, I had a decision to make there. I could have, you know, started using brute force to try and break that free. But I know that it came off just fine, and so I had to have something misaligned or just wasn't biting right. So a little bit of patience can save you a lot of money in parts. Worst case scenario is I'd have to replace the heatsink, which is $50 if I broke it. All that to test the system, you know, to test the CPU. So put the fan back on, and then we'll fire this back up and make sure that everything still works okay. Or we're going to have two systems to fix. Make sure that looks okay on the other side. We look good there. That looks good there. I'll put the motherboard power connector back on it. I guess I'll come around for that. Okay. Let's fire this system up, make sure we haven't damaged it. I'm sure we didn't. I'm just trying to be dramatic. There we go. Flip the power supply switch to on. Oh, that's my microphone. Wrong button, Carrie. All right, we'll see this fan spinning here in just a minute. There it goes. I'll flip you over to input 2. This should boot right to Windows 10. Yeah, that didn't take long, did it? We're already in Windows 10. All right, so, oh, I don't have a keyboard and mouse plugged in. So all you have to do, if you're ever in this situation like I am, where's my video? Is just hit the power button, and when I tap this power button, it shuts down. It actually is no different than using the start menu. And now this, you see the fan is slowing down and it's off. So I could have plugged a USB keyboard and mouse, but you don't have to. And that's that. So there's our diagnostic. Looks like everything the customer said is accurate. I do believe them that they changed out the RAM, the motherboard, and the power supply, and even tried a different solid state drive. But I still have to verify it. And now that I verified it, I can now look back at what the customer said and said, yep, it seems to be true. Now the last thing I want to do is leave that socket exposed on that motherboard, because that's obviously probably a motherboard that's perfectly fine. And there's a little plastic cover that goes over it, but the customer didn't send that to me. So I need to put something in there to keep it protected. So we're going to just put the CPU right back in. Then I'm going to email the customer and ask him for his receipt for the CPU. And then we can go through the RMA process with the motherboard manufacturer. Not the motherboard manufacturer, sorry. That's what happens when I'm looking at something, I'm focusing on it, I'm trying to talk about something else entirely. We can get to Intel's website and find out what their RMA process is. I've never RMA'd a CPU before. So this will go down in the record books, I guess, as that rarity, that it does happen. It's very, very rare. The only other thing I can think is if the i5-8400 just isn't compatible with a Z390. So if I had like a B310 motherboard laying around here, I know that would work. I mean, I wouldn't worry about any compatibility issue. Let's Google it. This is an ASRock. I keep calling everything a motherboard. It's a keyboard. Let's look at ASRock Phantom Gaming SLI AC. supports 9th and 8th gen processors. This is an 8th gen processor. CPU support list, Core i5. Yeah, it'll do Core i3s, Core i5 8400. I don't know what the U0 means. There's an 8400T. There's a ton of processors this board supports. Even you say i3s, even Pentium Golds, even Celerons will be supported in here. So it's not an incompatibility with the board. It is apparently a bad CPU. What's the latest BIOS on this board? I'm just curious. 4.20, which was released in mid-September. Okay. A couple of contributions have come in. Tony Watto has contributed again, $2. Thank you, Tony. Christoph Esch has contributed €10. He says, hello from Germany. I wanted to say thanks again to Catherine Anna Hauserman for the parts list for a new Ryzen 2 2700 build. Right on. Enjoy that, Christoph. Catherine puts together the best parts list. And you can't beat the price. She does it for free. Just reach out to her here in the chat to make arrangements to speak with her. Miraora has contributed $5. Did you get better lighting since the last time I was here, or is my new TV making it brighter? No, I'm learning how to adjust the settings on the camera. I was looking for a second camera, and I'm looking at prices. And the bottom line, and I'm realizing, is I may have to drop another $2,500 to get the exact same camera, so that all the same settings that work the same ways can be set the same way, and I don't have to learn each individual camera. I don't have two cameras that are alike. I've got a camera G20, a camera G30, a camera Canon G40. This is a Canon XF400, and this camera's ability to shoot in low light is better than all those other cameras. But I can buy 3 of those cameras for what this one camera costs. So you get what you pay for. And if I want to get a second camera or a third camera, I better start saving my money to get a couple more XF400s. And then your color palette and your sensitivity to light will all be the same, and all your settings will be in the same places, and makes life a lot easier at a cost of, $7,500 for 3 cameras. So yeah, that's why the lighting looks different. It actually looks brighter on what you're seeing than what I'm seeing here in the room. You figure that out. So, so the bottom line is we have a bad CPU, and we know it's a bad CPU because the same behavior exhibits on 2 different motherboards. Now, the customer already told us that, but that doesn't mean anything to me until I see it with my own eyes. So likely the power supply is fine, likely the RAM is fine, and likely the motherboard is fine. Now, a new CPU, let's see what these i5 8400s are going for right now. Let's just look at Newegg, I guess will be fine. Let's see, i5 8400 sells, it's a $220 processor. It's a 2.8 gigahertz, it'll turbo up to 4 gigahertz, 65 watts. So we'll see what B&H Photo has it for. It's probably going to be the same price. Oh, it's $199.99, but out of stock. One of the problems if you're looking to buy parts on Black Friday or Cyber Monday is if there is a sale, or even if there isn't a sale, sometimes people are just spending. So if there's ever going to be a time where something is sold out, it's pretty much today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, today. They'll replenish the stock. But in the meantime, I'll look into Intel's RMA process. Have any of you in the chat room ever RMA'd an Intel processor before? Back to Intel? Steve Welch has contributed $2. Hey, thank you, Steve. Madi OL has contributed again at $2. Thank you, Madi. Get a DSLR. I have a DSLR, and it does not shoot anywhere near as good as the camcorder. I don't know what the fascination is with people shooting with DSLRs, but here on YouTube, they're just not as good. They're awkward to hold. Getting to the settings is a bit odd. With a camcorder, when you have that traditional sort of camera shape, long and narrow instead of fat and heavy, top heavy, with the lenses on DSLRs. I guess if you were shooting something a bit more on a different platform where people can really see the difference, maybe it would make sense. But I can hold a camcorder and adjust the zoom with one hand. On a DSLR, you have to use two hands. So anyway, no, a DSLR is great for photography. It really super. I have a Canon T3i. I love it. And I see all the new Canons that are out, and I don't see any reason to upgrade it. I don't see any feature I'm going to get that is going to improve the quality of the photos I take. So the XF400 for what I'm doing just makes life so much easier. I have no doubt my video quality is so much far superior than with a DSLR here on YouTube. I have looked into it, believe me. What is a DSLR? A DSLR is a digital single lens reflex camera. It's like a traditional 35mm camera, only it's digital. And they have a mirrorless now, but when you take a picture, it has a mirror that clicks and you hear it. It sounds like a good old school journalist camera. Now they have the mirrorless, and the quality and speed is supposed to be outrageous. And even full frame, you get a full frame camera, but I don't need a full frame camera for YouTube. They're very expensive. I was looking at some Blackmagic stuff, and their Blackmagic support is like talking to the Flintstones. I've never seen such a high-tech company have such low-tech technical support and people who just don't know what they're doing. So the Blackmagic stuff, as far as I'm concerned, is off the table. The company needs to step up and become as technical as their products are. But you've got a very untechnical company selling a very technical product, and it basically means you're SOL when it comes to any sort of actual help from anybody at Blackmagic. And even returning a product requires you to take a pen and paper and write out a form. I mean, it's like, have you guys not heard of web-based forms or PDF files? We don't do it that way. It is absolutely insane to me that that company has such a great reputation, but it's clearly for the quality of their product. If you have a problem with the product, man, oh man, you're better off talking to Fred Flintstone for help. They're awful. Just one of the worst technical companies I've ever spoken to. So I won't buy any more of their products. I'm done with them. If I'm going to drop this kind of hard-earned cash on your products, I need you to hire knowledgeable staff and have a process for support that is equal to or greater than the quality of your product. That's me, though. Can you still buy film for old cameras? Yeah, of course you can. Still a lot of people shooting with 35mm. They like the quality of the picture better. Yeah, they still sell 35mm. Mike Jackson has contributed $20. A very generous contribution, Mike. Thank you so much for that contribution. And he says, have a Coke and a smile. Always a pleasure, my friend. It's very, very generous of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Boomhauer 100 has contributed $2. He says, nothing to drink but flavored Coke or you die, which I'll take death. It's fine. Madi has contributed $10. Madi Yoel, thank you for your continued support, Madi. I know I need to call Madi and talk to him. Oh, and he just contributed $20. Thank you very much, Madi. Ian McLeod's contributed $5. Says, my wife wants to say, thank you, kitchen computer guy, for helping my hubby make my new PC. Right on. You know, the kitchen's a very well-lit, naturally anti-static environment. And it's a place where the family gathers, you know. The bedrooms aren't usually a place the entire family gathers at once. Maybe the living room, but not often. But the kitchen is where it all comes together. The kitchen's where the family bonds. And building a computer together with the family is a very bonding thing, very similar to having dinner together, maybe even better than that because you're accomplishing something more than filling your belly. It's also filling your soul. It might be a little dramatic. But yeah, I really think computers should be built in the kitchen. I just don't really see carpeted kitchens. You don't want to work on carpet if you can avoid it. You can clear your kitchen table or countertop. You have a lot of room to work with. And it's usually very well lit. And hence, it's not so crazy to build a computer in a kitchen. Now, if I was in the bathtub, different story. Another video for another day. Let's not go there. Can you still get dial-up internet anymore? I imagine. Somewhere. Sure. Madi contributed $1.10. Thanks for all your contributions and support today and in the past, Madi. I appreciate that. And to everybody else who's contributed during today's broadcast. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. Kevin Hale contributed $2 and sends a "Hey You" sticker. And then he contributed $1 as well. Thank you, Kevin. David Inark has contributed $9.99. He said the Jedi move with the screwdriver is worth at least this. I agree. I think it is too. I hope I got everybody. If I missed your contribution, please speak now and let me know so I can give you the shout out you deserve. Get an old red cinema camera. They're relatively cheap. I've heard very good things about the red cameras from professionals. Like when I say professionals, I mean people in Hollywood. When I was working with the folks at Newegg, they hired people in the industry, in the I don't know, what is it, it's like a union of camera operators and stuff in Hollywood. And these guys know their cameras and worked on, like one of the camera guys worked on Housewives of Beverly Hills or something. He was a cameraman for that show. The cameras they're using are very different than what we use on YouTube, but the techniques and how you film and how you frame your shot are all the same, regardless of what you're using to do that with. And there was quite a lot of admiration for the red cameras. And I Googled them at the time, which was a couple years ago, out of my price range. I gotta be honest, the XF400, every Canon camera I've used, from the G20, the G30, the G50, I'm sorry, the G40, I don't have a G50, the XF400, each camera was better than the last one. They just keep getting better and better and better. They're also getting more and more expensive every time I step up to a larger sensor, better, faster focus, more focus points, higher quality, better low light shooting. I think the XF400 is the right camera for me. It's just $2,500. And I also like that I don't have to buy a bunch of different lenses, like with DSLRs. Because that can change a lot of things if you don't have the same lens on everything, or you gotta, which lens is for macro shots and which lens is for this and which lens is for that. I really don't want to get into that. Otherwise, I'll spend more time adapting and adjusting the cameras than making any content. And I'll lose a lot of viewers who aren't interested. So I do believe the XF400 is the way for me today. I'm reluctant to buy any more. I think the XF405 is out. Every year, Canon has another camera. So when I try and future-proof by buying, let's say I had 3 XF400s, let's say I've got $7,500 in cameras. The advantage to that is they all use the same battery, they all use the same memory card, they all use the same power supply, they all use the same menuing system and have the same features and have the same color tones and low light shooting ability. But no sooner than I make that investment, you know the Canon XF500 will be out. Like if I wanted to go backwards, I could go to an XF300 and save some money. Because this is a 4K camera, but I'm not using 4K because my upload bandwidth doesn't, I tried it, it's just not working well. But the XF300's been out a few years. So anyway, I'll eventually get there. The other cannons I've got shoot fine. They're not like they're broken. The G40 still shoots great. The G30 shoots great. The G20 shoots great. And when I move to different close-ups and stuff, nobody's complaining they're noticing a difference. It's just my OCD, you know? I like everything equal and the same. It's just really, really expensive. Nathan Liebert has contributed $2. Hey, thank you, Nathan. Randy Hopkins also contributed $2. Madi UL contributed $10. He says, I got your back. I hope so, because my back is killing me. I hurt it really bad. Boomhauer 100 said, I did a super chat that was missed. Hold on, let me see. Well, I see the one you contributed says, nothing to drink but a flavored Coke or you die. And I said, I'll take death. Oh, you said it twice. Oh, and then he's contributed another $2. He goes, that was the best answer ever. Here's another $2 for you. Never doubt my dedication. All right. William says, just get higher upload speed. It's not available in my area. The highest upload speed I can get is 35 megabits a second. And that's it. That's all there is. I have to go to another location. I have to move or go to an office complex, which I'm looking at doing. And the one I'm looking at has 500 up and down, but it's being shared by everybody else in the office. So if nobody else is doing what I'm doing or nobody else is using it intensely, it should be better than this. But here where I'm located, the cable company is simply not going to run fiber optic because I asked for it. They'll do it when it's financially feasible for them to do it. And that could be next week, it could be 10 years from now, who knows. The DSL speed in my area is still 1.5 megabits a second. And that's my choice. I can go DSL or cable. The best cable connection is 35 up. So it's 300 down, but it's 35 up. I take it back. You can get gigabit down, but you can only get 35 up. It doesn't make any sense. So I've got 30 up right now, and it's not enough for 4K. Josh McLeod has contributed $20.99 Canadian. Hey, thank you, Josh. Someone's pricing some of these red cameras. They see one for 27,000 pounds. Yeah, suddenly that $2,500 Canon camera doesn't seem so expensive anymore. And its lens is included. Nick says, I get 500 and it's only $75 a month. Yeah, well, you know, that's kind of the issue we have with internet in America right now is depending on where you live, you could have fantastic internet or you can have crappy internet, depending on who your provider is and what they've invested in their infrastructure and even what your city council has allowed these companies to do. Sometimes the companies don't want to spend the money. Sometimes city council doesn't approve of the construction work for it. It just depends where you live and how they're running the city and the company that's providing the service and what their attitude is. You know, Elon Musk is launching the satellites for broadband across the world. Maybe that'll be an option for me at some point. We'll see. There's often huge delays with services like that with regards to latency, but I mean, this is Elon Musk, so he's got to have a way around it. I don't think he'd be investing in it otherwise, but we won't know until it's available exactly what it is. And Madi's contributed again. Man, Madi is contributing a lot tonight. Thank you so much. Louis 67 contributed $2 Canadian. Says, have a good night. I have to go. Love your videos. Thank you, Louis. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the channel. Did you get your new pliers yet? I did. So I was at the tech convention we talked about back in September. And there was a video I did prior to that where I had trouble getting the screws out of a laptop drive. I had to get my drill out and drill the screws out, which freaked a lot of people out. And by the way, laptop runs great. There's no metal shavings that got loose. And it's running better than ever. The customer ended up going to the hardware store and buying, even though he didn't have to, he just wanted to. He got some screws and replaced the ones that I drilled out because I didn't drill through the threads. I just drilled through the heads of the screw, and the screws unscrewed and popped out. However, I've received a couple of comments about, you need a JIS screwdriver. It looks like a Phillips, but it's not going, the regular Phillips won't fit into the heads of those JIS heads that are used. It's a Japanese industry standard. It looks like a Phillips. It's a cross type head on the screw, but it's flatter. The screwdriver doesn't come to such a point. Well, I don't have one of those screwdrivers, and I've never needed one before. I must have removed thousands of JIS screws and not known it, but these would not come out. And Keith said, have you ever seen these pliers? And he sent me this other Japanese manufacturer that is really well respected for their tools. Let me grab them and I'll show you. And so I want to have these next time I might need them. I got these on Amazon, and they're a company called Engineer. That's the name of the company. And they're about $20 a piece. Let me show you what they look like here. So these, I'll have to put a link to these in the video notes. But these pliers, if you notice the very end of them, they have little grooves at the tip, sort of like half moon shape to grab around the edges of a screw so you can grab it and turn it. Now, these pliers might be a little too large to go into a little tiny laptop like that. So I got these pliers. These also do the same thing. And these might be a little large. So I got these pliers, and I think these are the ones right here. These are the ones that probably would have done the job. You can see they have a little picture of a screw right there and how it goes into the tip of that. And it allows you to grab onto that screw and just break that free. This tool right here probably would have done the job. And the model number is right up here in the corner. I guess I'm holding these upside down. But that's P257. And I think that's the best one. I've never used it. It's still in the package. But I think if I had this, this would have done it. I think these are too big. And then I just got these to like Pokemon cards. I thought I had to complete the whole set. But these are a lot bigger than I thought they would be. It was an awfully big pair of needle nose. I wish they were, more that size. But I never heard of this company before. In reading about them, all these people are talking about what a great company it is and how great these tools are. And I do enough work that, it does get expensive at $20. I still have one more coming. So that's over $100, well, about $100 or a little more than $100 for 5 pliers that I don't immediately have any need for. But to have them, to remember that I have them, if that scenario should rear its ugly head again, I have another option before I get out the drill, which sounds better to me. And I did not know anything about this company. I did not know anything about these pliers. Keith had sent me a message on Facebook and said, hey, you should check this out. And what he sent me a link to was like iFixit or something. And what they're doing is they're taking these pliers and rebranding it with their name and cranking the price up another $5. So once I figured that out, once I figured out who the actual manufacturer was, I was able to go to Amazon and buy it, direct without it rebranded or marked up in price. And it's the same tool. And that's pretty common with tools where they just rebrand them and mark them up. So yes, Japanese company called Engineer. You can see there's information on the back showing it removing screws and how it works. So that's perfect. So thank you for mentioning that. It's, if you don't know something exists, how do you consider that as an option, right? Like when I think of taking out screws with pliers, I think of using a pair of needle nose pliers and hoping it'll grip onto the edges of the screw. And that's a good way to scratch up a circuit board. I'd rather use the drill. But with these and the way that they're designed specifically for that purpose, I didn't even know such a thing existed. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity to use them. Seems like a weird thing to hope for. But I hope I'll be able to actually try it in a real world case scenario where I can't get the screw out. Pull out that pair of pliers and see if it just breaks free. Once it breaks free, a regular Phillips will bite into it just fine. I just couldn't break the screw free. Many of them. And it's not a problem I really had in all these years I've been doing this. I'm sure it's happened from time to time for 1 or 2 screws every once in a great while. But if it ever happens again, I'm ready. And if it never happens again, I wasted money. I'm sure they can, you know, I bought the different size ones because there have certainly been a number of things around the house where you can't get a screw out. So that's why I bought the bigger pliers, not just for computer work. I fix everything, so might be using it on the car one day. Contribution from Madi OL, $2. Hey, thank you, Madi. Keith Rosa says, what size do you think is best for laptops? I think in the scenario that I just had, the PZ-57s, they're the smallest ones that they make. They deal with the smallest screws with the flat heads, according to the information online. If this will focus, come on, camera, you could do it. So you got to remember, when I was in that laptop, I had very little space between the edge of the hard drive and the edge of the laptop case around it. So this allows me to get in there, bite on that screw, and turn it. The problem with the medium-sized ones is I might be able to, you know, get this to bite on the screw, but I don't know how far I can turn it before I start bumping into things like the edges of the laptop case. It certainly gives me more leverage. And these two are very similar in size. This is the PZ-58s. So basically what we got, if you look in the upper corner, it says PZ-55, right? This one says PZ-58. And the ones that I think would have helped me in that particular laptop are the PZ-57s. These are the smallest ones. And again, we're looking up in that corner, right up there, the white box. And I'll put links to these in the video notes. As soon as I'm done with this, I'll add some notes to these, links to Amazon for these. They look like very well-crafted tools. In fact, they even sell a little plastic cover for people that are so obsessive about their tools that it covers up the top of it. That's a stupid waste of money, that is. Anyway, you know, gotta love the Japanese. Todd Ector has contributed 20 Canadian dollars. Hey, thank you, Todd. John R. has contributed $5. He says, hey, Kerry, over the past couple of years, you've made me a much, I think he means better, much better tech in my help desk position. And here's a small token of my gratitude. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. You know, again, all the contributions I received to the channel all go back into the channel. That's why I can buy $100 worth of pliers and show them to you guys. I didn't know they existed, and it was a viewer like you who let me know they exist. So it's a constant give and take with us, right? I hope I'm not just here giving. I hope when you receive something of value from me that you can return something back. And it doesn't have to be financial. You can be using my Amazon links to make purchases. I make a small commission from that. You can be sharing links to my videos on any social media sites that you visit. You know, there are all different ways of being a supportive member of the community, even just hanging out here in the chat room and being kind and supportive to one another, you know. I think that's just, that's priceless, you know. So thank you guys so much. And for the contributions, of course, things like that. And, you know, if contributions get crazy, maybe there's another XF400 Canon camera in my future that I have to buy another $100 tripod for and another $65 memory card for. Those are problems I want to have. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So again, I will have the link for the pliers in the video notes. After we're wrapped up here, I'll go back and I'll look up that information and add it along with my Amazon store link, which has all the products you see me using. This driver, this Lazy Susan, this keyboard, all of it is stuff I source from Amazon, and you can buy the same exact things I have here. Keith wants me to make some Ethernet cables. Yeah, God. I used to make so many Ethernet cables, but it's so much cheaper to just buy the darn things now. well, not cheaper. For what it costs you to buy a pre-made molded Ethernet cable versus the time and the sore fingers involved in making one and having to remake it when you don't crimp it down right, it's time versus money. So I'll go to monoprice.com, M-O-N-O price, P-R-I-C-E.com, and you can buy cables for cheap. Just doesn't make sense to make them. Now, if I've got to run cabling through walls and stuff, that's a different story. But the patch cable to go from the wall to the computer, just buy those darn things. Cog Jin has contributed £2. This is another great informative video. Hey, thank you. But yeah, thanks to Keith for making me aware of that. I had no idea pliers like that existed. If I had known, I would already have had them. Those are good tools to have and hope you don't need them. Paul Boyd has contributed $2. Thank you, Paul. Carrie, thank you so much for all your videos. You're the one who taught me all about computers. Now it's my passion, and now I want to work in the IT field. I'm going to miss Windows 7. Yeah, I won't miss Windows 7. Just had to upgrade a customer last night to Windows 10. William Lynn has a list of the JIS screwdriver set. Yeah, that may be on my list. It's really one of these things like, look guys, in all the years I've been doing this, I can't tell you the last time I've ever worked on a system where I couldn't get screws out like that particular machine, that particular customer brought me on that particular day. I can't tell you when it's happened before, and it may never happen again. So it's easy for me to buy tools when I know I'm going to use them all the time. If I'm going to drop $150 on an electric screwdriver, I better be using it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it sitting in a drawer. This is something, I love this driver. It's fantastic. It makes my life so much easier. And I'd have paid $300 for it. That's how much I like it. And when it comes to specialty tools like this, the only reason I bought them is because I could. Now that I know that they exist, what you have to understand is I'm in a different situation than you are. If you're working on computers for a living, somebody brings you a laptop and you need to change the hard drive out, like I was doing, you're not doing it live in front of 1,000 people. So I was under the gun to complete, there's an old expression, the show must go on. I had to complete the video. The customer was with me. It wasn't like I picked if you're just a regular computer guy, you would probably pick the machine up, bring it back to your house or your office. If you ran into that problem, go on Amazon and order the pliers, because now you know they exist. I'm in a position now where I can afford to just buy them, so if I ever need them, I've got them. But if you're buying something you never use, it's kind of a waste of money. If you're telling your customer, I need 2 days or 3 days to do this job, and you notice on day one that you're going to have to order a tool to get this job done, Amazon has Prime delivery. They deliver, at least here in the States, you know, you'll have it the next day. Sometimes you can have it the same day. If it's early in the morning, you can order it and have it later that same day. Or get in the car and drive over to a tool store and ask if they have tools like that. And then complete the job. I don't have any job where I need these tools. It's been a long, long time since I've ever had a job where I would have needed those tools. I may never, ever use these tools. I only bought them because I could, and I like to be prepared. But that money could have gone towards something I can actually use today, something I need today. that I could use today. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, decide for yourself how you want to invest your money. And if you run into stuck screws all the time, absolutely, it's a no-brainer. For me, it's very rare, very, very, just like a bad CPU. I don't need to invest in a CPU tester, if such a thing existed. For once every 10 years I get a bad one. It doesn't make any sense, especially because the CPU tester would have to be updated constantly anyway. It's a bad example. But regardless of that, just again, a little something for you to consider and decide, is it something you want or something you need? And then ultimately make the decision that's right for you. Have you had Ethernet cables get stuck in the jack? No. I would have Ethernet cables that have the little shrouds over them, and sometimes it's hard to hit the release when the shrouds are really stiff. But you can often just pull the shroud back, or you can grab a pair of pliers and squeeze it down. It's usually that little clip with the shrouds. If the shrouds aren't on it, then usually that never happens. Typically what happens is the clips break off and then Ethernet plugs won't stay in the jacks, they fall out. So you put the shroud on it, it keeps that from happening. But then with the shroud on it, if the shroud is real stiff, you gotta have real strong fingers to get that pressed down and get it yanked out of there. Guys, I'm going to ask you to take it easy on the searching for the pliers, and the reason I'm going to ask you not to search for them is you're not using my link and I won't make the commission. So if you'll be patient, and when this video is done processing, it'll be about 2 or 3 hours after this video ends, it'll be available to view, and those video notes will have direct links to all these pliers for you guys. And when you click on those links, if you make a purchase at Amazon, then I receive a small commission from it. It won't charge you any differently. But if you bypass that and you go looking it up right now because you're anxious and you're impatient, and you can, but I would appreciate if you'd wait. It'll make it easier. You won't have to search for it. The link will take you right there. So, not that I make a lot of commission off of a $20 pair of pliers, but if 20 or 30 of you buy them, it could be a few extra bucks for the channel. A little bit of a connection issue here. I think I'm back. Okay, yeah. OBS had a little problem connecting with YouTube. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock my time, 7 p.m. in the evening here in Phoenix. And let me give a shout out to everybody who's contributed. We had a lot of contributors today, which is fantastic. Cog Jin and Paul Boyd, Todd Ector and John R., Marty O.L. 15 times, whatever it was. Thank you, Marty. Josh McLeod and Nathan Liebert, Randy Hopkins and Boomhauer 100, who contributed 3 or 4 times. Ian McLeod and Mike Jackson and Steve Welch and Mira Ora. Of course, Tony Wallow and Christoph Esch. Harry Shore and Kevin Hale. David Kelly Parent, who contributed 2 or 3 times today. Bill Thomas and David Denark. Benjamin Stroud, Fred Adams, Samuel Ramos, Marx Brothers 715, who contributed $14.99. Says, hey, Kerry, all your videos are awesome. I learned great information. Thank you for that. Jonathan Mayberry, who contributed 20 pounds, and Stephen Spencer, who contributed 20 Canadian dollars, along with John Craig and Josh McLeod and Chester Hughes. And of course, watching us from Vancouver, Canada. And our first contributor during today's live stream was Winston Ang Liu. So thanks you guys so much for joining. And again, for all the kindness, you guys supporting each other and being kind to each other here in the chat. Appreciate that. And for just being a fantastic example of what this community can be. Can't happen without you. So thank you so much for that. And I got to go email a customer, and I got to put those links in the video. that's going to wrap it up for me today. Thanks you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now. Oh, my video's not playing. Hold on a minute. Okay, it'll work now. All right. This is my custom outro my sister created. It's really cool. Check it out.